Owlboy was released recently for Xbox and PS4, which made me go search in my game library to see if I already own it. I found it and spent 10 hours delighted with the game. Simply gorgeous. I think the introduction says it all, but I suspect you're expecting to listen a few more lines. Owlboy has been in development for almost 10 years and went almost unnoticed when it was released on PC. It is a puzzle platformer in which we solve some relatively easy puzzles to advance. Otos, our main character, sees his land attacked by pirates and creates a group of friends consisting of characters once devaluated by their peers to try to save their world. It has to be said that it is a very well written story with well characterized characters, each one with its own history, more or less detailed to the point that we sincerely care about them. Even some of the side characters or villains are extremely well represented. It's a linear story with a small twist at the end, but very well set and explained. My only problem with the story, and not wanting to spoil it, it's the final battle. In addition, some of the dialogues become rather extensive, although I believe that little or nothing can be excluded from the final product. Graphically, the game was a surprise. I expected a Shovel Knight-like art style, but the way they used the pixel art in this game, combining it with high-resolution graphics, immense details on the movements and expressions, the construction of worlds and scenario goes far beyond the games that try to emulate retro games. For example, Otos does not speak, but the facial and body expressions details are more than enough to perceive all the emotions, and we can even imagine a whole dialogue with just them. Recently I spoke about the attention given to detail in Sea of Thieves, and Owlboy it's another great example of how to build a world and how to use art to do something well made. The game soundtrack does not disappoint and remarkably follows the tone of each. When we are quietly exploring the world, the music is calm and relaxing, and when we are in a fighting section or when we need to do fast movements, the music becomes more intense and dynamic. I like the sound effects for which one of the movements and actions of the characters, and even the sounds for the dialogue boxes, and although nothing is extraordinary, undoubtedly a competent job was made. And how do you play this? I tried to play it as a twin stick shooter, but at one point I got tired of it because it's so much easier to simply use keyboard and mouse. There was nothing fundamentally wrong with the configuration of the controller, but when the game reached a difficulty spike, I did not have enough skill to overcome a boss or a more demanding section, so I choose for the easier solution. Change the controller. In this game we control Otos, which as a standalone character does very little. He flies, twirls and spins. The secret and charm of the game is that we can pick up any of his three friends and take advantage of their different abilities to progress through the levels or areas that we would not have access to without them. Although the amount of enemies is not great, combat rarely seems repetitive, because the way they appear lets us to use different techniques to overcome them, and in each of those moments, the puzzles are relatively simple and often obvious, which means that you have the feeling that the boss battles have a remarkable difficulty spike and required me numerous attempts to outcome most of them. The fact that the controls were somewhat confusing, which made me do multiple mistakes, also did not help. In sections where we have time to think There was no big problem other than the frequent annoyance of picking up the friend rather than picking up an item or picking the wrong character, but during quick sequences a mistake ruins everything, and in those times it becomes most frequent. There are lots of collectibles and hidden areas that reward both exploration and the repetition of some of the areas when we gain access to new characters. Defeating enemies in a certain way also gives you access to new items. In a nutshell, the game is this: a lovely world with characters with whom we can easily create a relationship. Graphically, it managed to impress me by the way they included so many detail in the pixel art. A very engaging story, a game, and also an experience that I highly recommend. Now available on all platforms. If you have the opportunity to play it, do not discard this game.